What is your full name?
Juliet Maryon Mills.
And when is your birthday and the year of birth?
21st of November 1941.
As a child, where were you born and raised?
I was born in London, in the Blitz, and raised in London for a bit then because it was wartime. My parents rented an oast house in Kent, and that's where we've lived in the country and London all through our childhood, really.
And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
One sister, Hayley, who's 4 years younger, and one brother, Jonathan, who's 8 years younger.
Fantastic. What is your earliest memory of going to the cinema or theatre?
I think my earliest memory of going to the studio is when I visited the set of Great Expectations. My father was shooting with David Lee. Excuse me. The first film I ever saw, I don't know. I can't remember.
Growing up, did you have a favourite actor or actress whose work you really admired?
Vivian Leigh.
Fantastic.
Marlon Brando. Montgomery Clift. Susan Haywood. Shirley MacLaine.
And many of those you got to meet clearly, so that's amazing.
Yeah.
Was there an actual event or trigger that first prompted you to seriously consider acting as a profession? And how old were you at the time?
Well, you know, being brought up with it. I can't remember an actual moment. I actually wanted to be a ballet dancer and was sent to a ballet school. I was sent to a boarding school, Elmhurst Ballet School, which was an offshoot of Sadler's Wells. And that's what I thought I wanted to be until I got to be about 16. I realised I would only ever be a cygnet. I'd never be the swan. So I thought, I think I want to be an actress. And I suppose that's really that's what triggered it. But, you know, steeped in the theatre and film as we were as children,
right.
You know, I was brought up with it. It was so much a part of me that I sort of always knew I wanted to go into the theatre in some form.
Right. And how long was you at Elmhurst? Did you board there?
Yeah, I went there from the age of 9 till I was 16.
And Hayley was there as well, right?
She was there for less time.
Right.
Because she started her film career when she was so young and she was still at Elmhurst. Yeah. So she kept leaving to do movies and then coming back, and it didn't really work for her. It was very hard for her.
Right.
So she left quite young, but I stayed until I was 16, yes.
Right.
And then I was going to go to RADA, but I didn't.
That was going to be one of my next questions is, did you, other than Elmhurst, did you ever attend a stage school or even audition, study formally to train to be an actor anywhere?
No, well, the thing is, I took an audition into RADA, and I got into RADA after I left Elmhurst, so I was all set to go to RADA. And then I got an audition to do a play called Five Finger Exercise. It was through my father's agent, Laurie Evans, and they were looking for a girl of around 16 to play this part in Five Finger Exercise, which was Peter Schaffer's first play, brilliant play. And so Daddy said to me, well, why don't you go along and do an audition? It'll be good experience for you to do an audition. You've never done an audition. And I got the part, so I never went to RADA. But I had done one professional job before that, while I was still at Elmhurst, and that was a Christmas season at the Chelsea Palace of Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
And that was with Michael Dennison and Dulcie Gray and Binny Barnes, and that was my first experience of professional work, and we used to do 2 shows a day at the Chelsea Palace, which no longer exists.
Exactly. So your very first paid acting performance was as Alice.
It was, yes.
Fine, okay.
Yeah. And then I went back to Elmhurst and did 2 more years, because that was just a Christmas season. It was like a pantomime almost, but it wasn't a pantomime.
Right.
It was a fully fledged production of Alice Through the Looking Glass, singing and everything. It was the only time I've ever sung on the stage, actually.
I mean, obviously you started your career young, but can you remember the first time someone asked you for your autograph?
Oh, I think I was very young, before I'd even done anything, just because I was John Mills' daughter, you know, and he'd be asked to sign and they'd say to us, you know, would you sign? And so I don't remember when I was first asked on my own.
And you were saying that you tried to clone or replicate some parts of your father's signature into your own. Did
Yes.
you practice it very much?
Yes, I practiced it.
And the signature that you have today, how close is that to what you signed way back then?
Yeah, it's pretty close, I suppose. Yeah, because I could never replicate his J quite where he did, so mine sort of happened on its own, but it was inspired by his.
I mean, you mentioned a few names there, but of people that you admire, but at any point for your career, have you ever been starstruck when meeting someone famous? And have you actually asked anyone for their autograph?
Yes. Oh, yes, totally starstruck. I mean, when I was in Five Finger Actresses, I had my own autograph book and in my dressing room. And so I was lucky enough to have people, because it was a hit play, both in London and then on Broadway, all the stars used to come, and they'd come round afterwards, and I would ask them for their autograph, and I have that book to this day, and I have Monty Clifton there, I have Marlon Brando, I have Henry Fonda, I have a lot of wonderful autographs in my autograph book. It's one of my treasures.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I'm trying to have some continuity in my questioning because, again, throughout your career, I've spoken to many who don't, but were you one for collecting memorabilia? And other than the autograph book, is there anything else that you have in your possession still today?
Well, certain things that I have. I have a book of sonnets, Shakespeare sonnets, leather bound, that was given to me by Laurence Olivier and Vivian Leigh for my christening. That's inscribed by them both. That's one of my great treasures. But I don't collect sort of memorabilia in the sense of from a certain show or something like that, but I do have some treasures. I have letters and cards and books from Noel Coward, who was my godfather. I have jewellery from Vivian. She always would give me something, and I'm wearing a ring of hers today. So, I have that kind of memorabilia, I suppose.
You've done everything in terms of performance, but to perform, what would you choose? Theatre, television, cinema, radio?
Well, I love the theatre. The theatre is my first love. The theatre is what I always like to go back to because, it recharges the batteries. You get that wonderful energy exchange with the audience. You know how well you're doing. They're quiet. If they're listening, if they're not listening, they're coughing and eating sweets and, And it's wonderful to be in a comedy and get that great laughter. So the theatre's number one, but I love film and television's, definitely the third choice because at least the television that I know is always a slight compromise compared to a big movie, where they take as much time as they need, spend as much money as they want. Of course, television now has changed with Netflix and Amazon and all those, and these big productions and all of that.
Right.
But I haven't been in any of those, so I'm going
Not
on.
yet. Not yet. Which of the parts, performances or characters would you say that most people remember you for when they approach you?
I suppose really Nanny and the Professor, definitely one, which was television. The Carry On film I did, definitely
Carry On Jack,
Carry On. Avanti is very much remembered because now it's become a sort of cult
Yeah.
film, because it was one of Billy Wilder's films that actually at the time, when it was released, wasn't a success. It was not critically well received. But now it's become really a cult movie. So I suppose those three, more than anything.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And if it, I mean, it may well be the same answer, but whether it be for what you did on stage or screen, can you name any of your own individual performances that you are personally the most proudest of?
Yes, I suppose Avanti, I suppose, because I was working with the best of the best, Jack Lemmon and Billy Wilder. I mean, the two, genius comedy, the director, and so that was a highlight of my life and my career, and I'm very proud of that film. I played Mrs. Kendall in The Elephant Man opposite Maxwell.
That was a nice production to be involved with.
That was, and I'm very proud of that. I loved doing that. I did Midsummer Night's Dream for Peter Hall at the RSC, and I'm very proud of that. And also, She Stoops to Conquer in London for about 8-9 months, I suppose, opposite Tom Courtenay.
Right.
So those I suppose
Some wonderful,
are up
wonderful
there.
roles there. In a life where you're seeing casting directors and having meetings and auditions, is there a part or a role that you still remember today that you auditioned for that you really wanted but never got?
Oh gosh, no, I can't remember a certain one. There's so many, I think. No, I can't remember a certain one, I'm afraid.
I mean, on the flip of that, was there ever an acting part that you actually turned down, maybe for whatever circumstances that you wished that you did?
That I'd done. I can't remember that. No, there's nothing that sort of stands out in my mind that I feel I missed the boat on or anything, no.
Again, you've worked with many of the established British stars and certainly many in the US, but can you name a co-star that you liked working with the most, and maybe some that you had a little tougher time with? People always like the controversy of the tougher ones.
I've been very lucky. I've never had problems working with people. The only one I had a slight problem with was a TV show called Get Smart. What was the lead in that? Don something or other. You'll have to look that up. Yeah. I can't remember his name. He was a difficult bugger. I had a trouble with him. And our first scene we ever did, we started off in bed, and he was very obnoxious, I thought. But otherwise, I can't. One of my favourite. I've had wonderful leading men. I've had Jimmy Stewart was a leading man. Jack Lemmon was a leading man. Maxwell Caulfield was a leading man. Tom Courtenay, wonderful actor, wonderful friend. Well, there's some of my favourites.
That's very good.
Yeah.
And again, rather than asking you who your favourite director was, I'll ask it in a slightly different way. Please outline what a director needs to do to get the best performances out of Juliet Mills.
That's a good question. They need to make you think about the text and what everything means to this character, to think in character, to ask good questions in relation to emotions and everything, and to be very encouraging. Because an actor needs confidence to be able to do their best work, I think. And I don't believe in directors who will put actors down or embarrass them or, it's for me, it's the director that is encouraging and praises you for something and brings you along in that way. This director I've just worked with, Charlotte Peters, for this play, Darker Shores, wonderfully clever director with actors, and I really enjoyed working with her. You know, of course, Billy Wilder, he was just a master of writing, directing, whatever, and he made everything fun.
Right.
But you had to say his lines exactly as they were written. You couldn't add a word or a full stop or anything. But he made, it was a joyful, fun set. Professional, everybody had to be on time and do their best work, etc. But it was, you know, I think when it's a relaxed, happy set, I'm talking about films now, of course, I think everybody does their best work.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Bit of a left field one. Other than your husband, he's a given. You are hosting an intimate dinner party and you're able to invite 3 guests, dead or alive, in a profession or outside of a profession. Who would you invite?
Stephen Fry. I was going to say Prince Charles, but I suppose I can't say King Charles, because I have met him a few times. King Charles, Stephen Fry, and I suppose Dame Judy.
Ah, she's lovely.
Yeah.
Great, 3 great choices. As you mentioned earlier, you've had a wonderful career, but if you could relive one moment in your career one more time, what moment would you choose?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose when I was playing Titania for Peter Hall in the Midsummer Night's Dream, we were playing it at the Aldwych, and there was a gala night. It was, I suppose it was some sort of benefit, but it was absolutely royal. It was the King and Queen of Greece were there in the stalls, and a whole host of royalty with all their glittering diamonds. I've never seen so many diamonds. And the Queen was in the royal box with Prince Philip. And we did the show, and at the intermission we were invited up into the royal box to meet her. And I think that was the most exciting evening in the theatre I've ever had, actually.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Looking back over your career, do you have any regrets? If you had your time again, would you have done anything differently, made any different choices at any stage?
I don't think so. No, it's one of my beliefs in life is to not have regrets. And it's, my father taught me, don't always try not to have any regrets about anything. And I don't think I have any regrets. I think I would have had a regret if I hadn't taken the opportunity of going to America and doing Nanny and the Professor.
And your father had to convince you to do that,
He
right?
did.
I mean, that's a significant one. And
it is.
You've gone over
and
to the
he
US.
said, you know, I think you'll regret this if you don't take this opportunity. And I was doing She Stoops to Conquer at the time, and they had to let me out for 3 weeks to go and shoot the pilot in Los Angeles. And even then, I didn't realise what a huge event it was in my life, because it did change everything.
Change everything.
I thought I was going to be, you know, spend my life in the theatre, and my career was going to be in England. But it did change it. To start with, I thought it would be 13 episodes of Nanny, and we did 64 episodes.
Yeah.
So, and other work kept coming over there, and less here. So I stayed there, and I love living in America, and I love working there, and my children were born there. So I think that would have been a big regret, but I don't have it, and so
I'm glad that you made the choice, and you haven't lived to regret that. Couple of last ones on this section. Tell us something about you or your career that most people would not already know.
Would already know. Well, I don't know. I can dance. I can't sing. Or at least I don't want to sing. It makes me frightened. About me, maybe they don't know I'm a really good cook, and a really good gardener.
Fantastic.
And a huge animal lover. I don't know if they know that.
That's lovely. This is often for what many that I meet that are retired, and obviously you're still very much working, but finish the sentence. Whatever happened to the actress Juliet Mills?
She's still going strong and flying the flag.
Just one last one there. With your years and years of experience, what advice would you give to any actor, actress today? I mean, obviously the industry is very different now, but what would you say?
I would say that you have to have a lot of luck. You have to want it more than anything else and be ready to sacrifice a great deal and be ready to take a lot of rejection and disappointment and not let it, get you down. And it would be very useful to have a second string to your bow, because it's a very insecure, unpredictable profession. Far too many people in it. So many people that are really available to do the same job, that it's a very tough profession. You need a lot of luck and a lot of talent too.